What you need to know about the periodic table is that it is a list of all the different elements that exist in the universe, or at least the ones that we know about. As you can see, when we start at the first element, hydrogen, it has an atomic proton number of 1. As you go across, you then get helium, which has an atomic proton number of 2, and then you carry on. Lithium has 3, beryllium has 4, boron has 5, and so on. So you need to know the periodic table is arranged in order of atomic proton number. The second useful thing to know about the periodic table is that each element has a relative atomic mass. Basically, the relative atomic mass will tell you the protons plus neutrons. And the atomic proton number, I've already said, that just tells you the number of protons. What's useful about these two is you can use them to figure out how many neutrons an element has. So for example, if we take helium, which is over here on the right in group 0, helium has a relative atomic mass of 4. Then, if we know the relative atomic mass is 4, and we know the protons are 2, we can write that in. 4 equals 2, and then plus, we don't know neutrons at the minute, so we can figure that out. 4 minus 2 is 2, and you're left with n equals 2. So the number of neutrons in helium is 2. So you can use these two to figure out the number of neutrons, which is useful. The second useful thing to know about the periodic table is what do the numbers along the top mean. These numbers along the top tell you the group number that the element is in. So for example, the first group here, group 1, that's the alkali metals. Every single element in this group has 1 electron in the outer shell. That is actually why they are really reactive. Whereas if you go across and say we go to group 4, what we know about group 4 is that every single element in this group has 4 electrons in the outer shell. The only exception that you need to know about is group 0. Group 0 elements have a full outer shell. That can either be 2 or 8 at GCSE level. Okay? So helium, for example, since it only has 2 protons, it must have 2 electrons because atoms have a neutral charge. So helium will have 2 electrons in its outer shell. It'll have a full outer shell. Neon will have 8 because it has 2 on the first level and then 8 on the next level. And then argon will have 8 on its outer shell also. So these elements have a full outer shell. Another important thing that you need to know about the periodic table is the periods and what they mean. So the periods are basically the rows that the elements are in. And they go like this. So you have period 1 down to period 7. If you're in period 1 as an element, that means it will have 1 electron shell. Helium only has 1 electron shell. Neon, however, will have 2 electron shells. Argon will have 3, and so on. So for example, if we think about aluminium is in period 3, so it will have 3 electron shells. Another thing that's useful to be aware of is the difference between the metals and the non-metals. So basically what you need to know is that all the metals are on the left. So everything on the left, and it's delineated by this division which I've drawn here, everything on the left is a metal, whereas the elements on the right are non-metals.